open up your cameras if you can. And you can start singing if you want to. Come on in, everybody. Tom is cruising on a walk by a pool. Love that. Thanks for bringing us with you. That makes me happy just to see that. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. Really delighted to lead today's live event. This is something unique and super special that we're doing today, that we are expanding the impact that we can make, expanding our audiences, moving into broader scopes together. So I'm very excited. I'm going to bring Brian and Caitlin up on stage here in a second. But before I do that, I would love to let's out ourselves, shall we? So everybody pop in the chat, where are you in the world and how old are you? Let's just find out. So I'm from Woodside and I'm 58. I'll be 59 in February. So let's see who's here and what different age demographics we have. Berlin, Germany's here, 24. Love it. We've got our team here in their 30s. Joshua from Indiana, 35. Brian, of course, is here from LA. Love it. Who else do we have coming in today? Everybody's getting logged in. Welcome. Carmel, 53, on behalf of my 22-year-old son. Excellent. That's kind of what I was driving at here. Yep. Love it. Lisa and others. So, you know, the social science research on midlife is that midlife now is supposed to go from age 35 to 75. That still breaks my brain, really, that a 35-year-old and a 75-year-old are all in midlife. That is crazy pants. Like, you can have a grandchild that age. But because we are living longer and because life kind of evolves at different paces for us, these types of transitions are happening at different ages. And as I've had a chance to work in managing transitions for thousands of you, I think it's ageless. And I think that most of us who've taken these classes at the world's first midlife wisdom school in our 50s and 60s keep saying, man, I wish I knew this when I was in my 30s. Man, why didn't anybody tell me this? Man, my kids need to do this. So if I have been asked once, I have been asked 100 times, when can we put some of this material together for the next generation? So here we go, you guys. I'm so excited to announce that as we open up our Santa Fe Ranch next year in new programs of weekend programs and weekday programs, we're going to do a special long weekend dedicated to thriving in your 20s, 30s, and 40s to build a life that matters. And what better teachers than to have the infamous and delightful Brian Dubow here with us, anchoring this long weekend with Caitlin Allen. Oh my God, am I excited. So just a little update about these two. But they'll be co-facilitating this program for Gen Z and Millennials next year in January. What a great way to kick off 2026. So Brian, thank you for being here. He's the founder of Hit of Happiness, as you see the HOH behind him. He is a certified happiness trainer. Yes, do we need this? He's an Ironman athlete. He's a UCLA MBA. He left the fast track of a corporate career at PricewaterhouseCoopers during what he called his quarter life crisis, and has been focusing on helping young adults get unstuck and build lives that are meaningful. He's teaching a class at UCLA called Alive, guiding MBA students to explore what makes them actually feel alive beyond just sitting in the classroom. So we're going to dive into all that. Caitlin Allen is an essential member of our team here at MEA. She has been working on the ground for many years, working with groups, managing a sustainability or regenerativity program, working in the back end in management. She is my right and left hand, an extraordinary emerging leader in the company. And she brings this grounding in understanding community, sustainability, a deep background in social impact. She's designed and led regenerative initiatives at MEA as our social impact manager. And she's super passionate about helping us live more intentional, value-driven lives. So, wow, you guys, I'm already in a good mood just hearing about you, as is the rest of our team. Like, yes, this is exciting. So let's tap into some of this energy that you have. But first, in the green room, before we kicked off, we wanted to ask everybody a question, which is, how are you actually doing right now, everybody? Can we get real? How are you doing right now? Put it in the chat. Are you feeling like overwhelmed? Are you feeling stressed? Are you feeling happy? How are you feeling? How are you doing right now? Pop in the chat. First word that comes to your head. How are you doing? As you can tell, this is a participation focused live event. So I'm waiting. Everybody type a little overwhelmed, but grateful, sad. Lisa is, I'm doing great because you're coming to a retreat called Who Am I Now, led by Jill Nicolation, one of our wonderful teachers. So obviously you're in a reflective place, Lisa. Stressed, looking for a new job. I'm great. I won the game, but I'm worried about my kids' daughters, 37 and 40. Yep. Present and excited. What else? Feeling grateful. But I don't feel like I'm on an intentional path. Yeah. Some of us aren't even sure how we're doing. So let's just stop there. And that, both of you two have been doing a lot of work that's aligned with purpose. And I'm sure you probably never imagined that you would be sitting here on a Zoom call today talking about happiness and purpose to people of all ages and stages of life. So, let's just talk about how life does not go in a straight line. Maybe you can each share with us a little bit about how you found yourself doing this work and how you're focusing on happiness as a career. Why don't we start with you, Brian?
Sure. Thank you for the intro, Carrie. I need you as my hype woman all the time. So I definitely didn't grow up saying I want to be a happiness coach when I grow up. It was not a linear journey for me. I actually started my career as an accountant and a deals consultant at one of the big four accounting firms in New York City. I would say I never really asked myself what I wanted to do from a young age. It was more of like, oh, I'm good with numbers. My parents an accountant. This makes sense for me. It was always kind of logic driven. It wasn't necessarily like getting to know myself. I think we aren't really taught self-awareness enough from a young age. And so, yeah, I started my career in consulting, great career, found myself in the room with CEOs and CFOs from a very young age and was succeeding by societal standards. Was making good money. I had parents who were proud of me. I had social media of me traveling all over. But when I really sat with myself, I realized that something was missing. I didn't feel a great sense of purpose or meaning. I was pretty burnt out. I wasn't really taking care of myself, probably working 70 plus hour weeks. And I just wanted more. I wanted, going to the name of our course, like building a life that matters. I had this like urge, this sense of it was like a pressure in the back of my head that like I wanted to make my life count, and I didn't feel like I was quite there yet. And so that led me, that's kind of what I would call my quarter life crisis, where I said, like, well, if this isn't doing it, I'm getting the things that society told me would make me happy, and I don't really feel happy, what will make me happy? And that led me to hire my first life coach and start having coffee chats with people living life in an interesting way, ranging from creatives to entrepreneurs to athletes to executives. And one of the most impactful coffee chats for me was with a professor at Harvard. His name is Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar. He's one of the lead thinkers on the science of happiness. He taught the most popular class at Harvard, which was on happiness. And, this was before happiness was cool. This is, 2018 or so, now that COVID's happened, everyone's talking about happiness. Um, and so I ended up signing up for a program to study under him to become a certified happiness trainer and coach. And that was still while still in my consulting job. And it was really just a deep dive into the science of happiness, learning what actually makes us happy versus what we think makes us happy. And more importantly for me, it was just a year of getting really, really intentional with my habits and my life and, paying attention to who in my life was energizing me, who was depleting me, what was I eating, started exercising really consistently, did my first marathon. And a year later, I would say my happiness went from like a 4 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10 while still working in the same job. And I would say my main takeaway was that happiness is an inside job. And I was giving so much credit to, oh, that next promotion or when I buy the house or, get the girlfriend, then I'll be happy. When in reality, so much of it was within my control. And so that was kind of the beginning of my journey. I still never thought I would build a business around this, but it was like, if this can work for me, why can't this work for other people? So I started coaching on the side. Eventually, I switched into HR strategy at PwC internally. So that was really about how do I motivate our employees and retain our employees. And I got to start leading workshops on happiness and stress and relationships. And eventually I found myself leading workshops for 2,000 plus people at a time. I was like, if this can work at PwC, why can't this work anywhere? So along the journey, I started a blog, I started a podcast, I attended MEA where I met Caitlin. And at the time, I was actually the youngest person ever to attend MEA. And at the end of it, I, talked to Chip a bit and I was like, hey, Chip, this is all amazing. Why aren't you doing this for our generation? I think that our generation is just as lost as any midlifer. And here we are a few years later, and it's so cool to be here with Caitlin facilitating this for our generation.
Oh my gosh, such synchronicity and intentionality, Brian.
Mm.
Thank you for telling your story. Caitlin, tell us your story, how you got here.
Well, it's nice to see everyone. Hi. Also, I've lived a very non-linear life and very different than Brian, in the sense of I didn't really follow the conventional path from the get-go. I had parents that worked to put food on the table. I didn't have like career parents. I'm from a really big family, and so that kind of not the pressure of that wasn't really there. And also this openness, my parents were just kind of always telling us we could do whatever we wanted. Like, don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't do what you want to do. And so I think that that really helped nurture my connection to what I wanted from a very early age because I was given that permission very young. And in my experience, a lot of it also required a lot of discipline. And I was a very, very high level athlete my whole life. So that was kind of my main driver was if I was going to go to college, I needed to succeed in sports. And eventually got a full ride to a Division I school, played soccer, got a full and graduated in 4 years and all those things. And then when college ended, it was like kind of the first time I had real freedom because my soccer career was a full-time job year round since I was like 8 years old. So I actually got to now tap into what do I want to do with my life? Like now that I don't have this sort of structure and people telling me what to do and places that I need to be, one, it showed me how lost a lot of athletes were. It was a really, really powerful time for me to see how many people I knew graduating losing the structure of sport and not having any idea of who they are or what they wanted. And it helped affirm in me how fortunate I was to have a pretty good sense of who I was and what I wanted. And so from there, I played semi-pro soccer for a couple of years up in Washington State. And when I wasn't up there, I was in San Diego and kind of floating around the West a little bit, playing and spending a lot of time outside. And then I got exposed to Mexico. So I live in Baja California, Sur, Mexico, where our MEA campus is down here. About 11 years ago, I made it this far down in the country, and I just fell in love. I had no, didn't, MEA didn't even exist then, so I found my way here separately. But clearly there's some good energy in the air. Um, and yeah, it showed me, it gave me this sense of freedom and opportunity to be connected to things that were really key priorities for me. Really, for me, like my guiding principle is freedom. And so that's always kind of been my check of like, does this help kind of nurture that or does that not? And then that my heart has kind of helped lead that way. And so my path has not been linear, and oftentimes my decisions didn't make sense to either society's expectations or even to people close to me. But I knew that it was true for me. So I've built trust in myself to follow through on that.
Mm, so beautiful, you two. Now, how many of you are in the audience who are in midlife going, oh yeah, actually, I also went through a stage in my life, whether it was sports or work, with a deep disillusionment in where my path is and needing to think about something else or go in a different direction. It's sort of these rites of passage that come along at different times of our life. And I love that some of you who are here may have kids who are in this Gen Z millennial generation. I certainly do. My son is 30 years old. And actually, I sent my son to MEA for the summer. So I can attest that it's even being the youngest, the concepts are pretty universal. This idea of being able to reflect on who we are and what matters to us and move through the external world that's telling us to be a certain way and to really locate that inner compass a bit more for ourselves. So those of you who might be listening on behalf of your adult kids, you can give them the recording to talk about this and listen to it and get their own insights from it. But I want to throw something out here that I've been so lucky working with MEA to speak to so many interesting thought leaders. So Tal Ben-Shahar, you had a chance to work with Brian. What an amazing, amazing teacher on happiness. Arthur Brooks is teaching with us on happiness and the finding the meaning of life. But I really recall an important conversation I had with Bruce Feiler, who wrote a book on transitions that became very seminal in our teaching at the Midlife Wisdom School. But he also wrote a book on purpose right after COVID. And so one of the things that he said is that the millennials and the Gen Z understand the importance of aligning with purpose at a much younger age than baby boomers and Gen Xers did. And he felt like it was one of the most important contributions to our societal evolution, and that we need to be paying attention to the generations who are building a more mindful life from the beginning. And I love that. And that really has struck with me. So I'd love to hear, Brian. I know you spoke a little bit about coming through this after COVID, but I'd love to hear your reflections on kind of the universality that you have seen on trying to align our life with a sense of purpose, or dare I say happiness, no matter what age we're in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely seeing a huge shift, especially in our generations. And I think a big part of that is that the old paradigms just aren't working as well as they used to. You know, you could argue that the American dream is dead. You could do every single thing right, have the perfect job, and still not, afford a house and where you want to. And, with all the layoffs these days, people like tech companies aren't even safe. So knowing that nothing is necessarily guaranteed anymore. I think we have a generation that's willing to at least try to make their life count, try to live a life that is intentional and go after something that really is meaningful. And that's nothing, not to say anything about the old paradigms. I think, our grandparents, they were just trying to put food on the table after World War II. The next generation was trying to have a better life than their past. Now we live in a world where there's all these comforts and all these technology, but within that we lose ourselves a bit. I think, especially with ChatGPT today, we're losing our own thought patterns and our own personalities. So I think the opposite of that, and the pushback is our generation really asking ourselves, like, who are we? What is our purpose in this society? How can we make this life count? And with a lot of my clients, I'm seeing that it starts with just asking yourself better questions and creating more space in our lives. A lot of us have never really asked ourselves, what is success to me as opposed to my parents or society? What are my top three values and am I living in alignment with those? What are my superpowers? So the way I see it, I think society has changed and it is continuing to change and it's going to be very different in another 2 years and another 3 years. And knowing that nothing is certain, why not go after a life that is aligned with our truest selves?
Mm, I love that. It's true. We're in very uncertain times, and to kind of default to rolling with that, accepting that that is part of the case, and then find something that really feels authentic and true. Caitlin, you have seen thousands of people come through the campus at MEA of all different walks of life. What would you say are some of the common insights that you are finding humans are reflecting on that just transcend age?
Yeah, great question. I think something we hear a lot is that people feel stuck. And that is, in my experience, universal in age. Um, they feel that they don't know the answer. And I think some of the magic that we do is we help, to Brian's point, ask questions. So we help people mine their own information. And so I think that's a big part of our workshop is like we're not here to tell you how to what your life is that matters to you, but we want to help you find out what a life that matters to you would be like and what that feels like. And so yeah, so feeling lost, feeling stuck, feeling alone. A lot of people comment on being alone, and again, at all different ages. And I know Brian could probably speak to that as well about how people are feeling lonely younger. And it's something Chip has talked about a lot. Um, so I would say those are some of the big things that I hear. And I just want to pull on a thread Brian shared that just made me think of something of because the landscape has changed, I think what's been so helpful for me as sort of a framework is like looking at it as a canvas. And if we don't have a lot of other models doing things differently or outside the norm, it can feel really scary to start your own path. And it can feel intimidating, and there can feel like there's less resources or people that you can go to. And for me, a big reframe has been thinking about like an open canvas, and I'm the artist. So it's like, if this is my open canvas, like I can create anything that I want. And that's unique to me, and it's always going to be unique to me. And so as we kind of start to unravel from these sort of societal success models, instead of it feeling sort of limiting, it can really start to be reframed as really expansive.
Mm, I love that, that open canvas of our lives that just continues to recycle and to grow. So let's take it back to you. Tell us about Hit of Happiness, Brian, and some of the material within it that you found really helpful. I know you have a magic framework, but walk us through what you have learned about, how to get outside of a mindset that we're doing all the right things, we're on this treadmill of life, but we're still not happy, we're not fulfilled, we're thinking this next thing is going to be what's going to do it, but then it isn't. We don't really know how to source from within.
Yeah, so I think a lot of us are looking externally, at the external KPIs of how much money am I making, and am I even with my peers in terms of my relationship status, and all those things. Where to me, you know, I don't think the problem is that we don't know what makes us happy. I think it's that we aren't doing the things that make us happy. Like we live in a world where ChatGPT is here and we have all the information in the world at our fingertips. Does that mean that everyone is exercising and eating healthy and meditating and journaling and connecting with people in a meaningful way? Absolutely not. So the problem is we're so focused on, oh, I just need to do whatever it takes to get the promotion because that'll make me happy, as opposed to, I just need to do the things that feed my soul and feed my body, my mind, body, and spirit for that matter. And so a big part of what I help people with in the beginning is just getting them back into their bodies. And that's through, one of the frameworks that I use is magic, 5 things you can do every day to be the happiest version of yourself. Mindfulness, activity, gratitude, inspiration, and connection. Mindfulness, activity, gratitude, inspiration, and connection. And you know, one pushback I often get is like, oh, I don't have time for all those things. I'm already super, strapped on time. I think you can do all these things in about 10 minutes a day. Mindfulness can be one intentional breath, three intentional breaths. We can all take one intentional breath together right now. Like maybe you feel a little bit more present just from that. Activity, moving our bodies. That can be a quick walk outside. Gratitude, noticing the good in our lives as opposed to focusing on all the problems. And it's not our fault that our brains focus on all the problems in the world. That's just, that's the way we've grown because of lions and tigers and bears that we were worried about thousands and thousands of years ago, but we don't need to worry about that now. Instead, we are worrying about emails and texts and, little things in our pockets. So how can we focus on the good in our lives? Doing things that inspire us, that can be a conversation, a TED Talk, a game, and connecting with people in a meaningful way. So these are actions that I recommend that people take every single day to really get back into their bodies and feeling good. I like to say that's kind of a framework to get you from surviving to thriving. But I also don't think that like life ends when you're now thriving. It's like, okay, I'm done with the game of life. That's kind of the entrance to your life, the way I see it. So that you can be happy now that you're generally happy, feeling good, feeling more positive and negative emotions in a day. Then comes the question, how do I want to make my life count? So that's then the self-awareness journey and the self-actualization journey. The self-awareness journey is a lot of what Kayla and I are talking about with like, what is success to me? What are my values? What are my superpowers? What are my limiting beliefs? And then the self-actualization journey is actually going after it. And, a lot of times we resist stepping into things that are uncomfortable for us. And we need accountability. We need systems in place. So to
And I
me,
got to come back. So someone asked me, what is magic again? We have mindfulness, activity, gratitude.
inspiration and connection.
There we go.
Uh,
Everybody, these are words to live by.
yeah, absolutely. Do those five things every day. I promise you won't be the same version of yourself.
Let's
Uh,
talk about the last one, because
yeah.
I think connection is something that's really on everybody's minds. I am known as the digital queen, y'all. And some of you know, you've taken classes with me. Like I've loved Zoom before anybody knew what Zoom was. I thought it was the best thing ever because it could bring us together all around the world. And then COVID hit and everybody was using these tools, right? Like think back to those days in COVID when we had to have Zoom funerals and FaceTime Christmas parties and babysitting the grandkids by reading them stories virtually. It was this huge gift that we suddenly had technology to help us stay connected to each other. And yet, after COVID ended, we all kind of got used to not being with each other in person and got used to kind of crawling under the covers and just being on our own and felt that longing, that missing being with people. And some of us live in neighborhoods where you don't even know your neighbors and you can go all day without really talking to anybody. And that desire for connection, I think, is even more amplified in this generation.
Mhm.
So I love to hear your reflections about that. Caitlin, you alluded to it, that loneliness is quite rampant in your generation. So maybe you could start and reflect on what you've noticed about that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so many things. I think I'm in this little pocket of time where I grew up without a cell phone and then saw cell phones. And there's this like little window just from my little brother, even who is 6 years younger than me. And he had it his whole like teenage year through. And so I feel like I'm really grateful for that because it kind of gave me the before and after. Um, and what I hear in my close circles is connection is kind of scary. You have to show up. And I really look at like friendships and relationships of all kinds as like a muscle to work. Like you have to put in the time to go to the gym to feel stronger. You have to put in the time to call that person to stay connected. And so I think that there's two big things for me around it is if we want to feel more connection or we feel alone, we have to be intentional about doing it, but also who we're doing it with. So does this person make me feel inspired. To Brian's point, does this person make me feel a little bit drained? Like, am I exhausted after I hang out with that group of people? And that's kind of that self-awareness, right? Where if I can pay attention to how things around me are making me feel and how people are making me feel, it can empower you to feel more confident to then make decisions to build maybe better connections that are more fulfilling and more rewarding. But with technology, as at least in the younger generations, from what I see, is we feel more connected, but we're more lonely, because we're just spending more time not in person. And I think about this a lot of how before cell phones, when you were waiting in line for a coffee, you'd probably talk to people. Like that was a thing. And now, everyone's doing this. And I'm a victim of that, absolutely. And so there's all of these like interstitial moments of connection we used to have at the grocery store and what we would call kind of like third places at MEA that are really, really lost. Everyone at the gym has headphones in. So that's kind of that intentionality bit where it's harder in many ways. And so there is this intention, confidence, muscle that we need to build if we really are looking for more meaningful connection to help us feel less alone.
Yeah, and I'll just build off of that. That was a great answer, Caitlin. The past U.S. Surgeon General said that the number one epidemic in America is not COVID, it's loneliness. And this is especially rampant in, the youth. The World Happiness Report, I think it was last year that America was out of the top 20 for the first time ever. And if it was based off of 30 and below, I think we'd be ranked like 63rd, the 63rd happiest country in the world, even though we are the wealthiest country in the world. And we have everything you can imagine. And that's because everyone feels so lonely, so disconnected. 1 in 2 people would describe themselves as lonely today. I mean, relationships are the number one predictor of happiness. This is known. And it's not the quantity of relationships. It's not how many Facebook friends we have or Instagram followers we have. It's it's the ability to have people you feel safe with, you can trust, you can have the real conversations with. Um, I just don't think so. The younger generations, especially losing a lot of formative years in high school and college to COVID, have got to really develop that skill of connection in a meaningful way. Or maybe they did develop it and kind of lost it because as Caitlin said, it requires work. Usually when you see someone, you say, "How are you?" And they say, "Good, you?" And we actually haven't learned anything about the person. We haven't connected at all. So it does require a little bit of leading by example and giving a real answer like, "Oh, I'm struggling with this. This is going well," etc. We have to give space to listen to people and turn it backwards. So I think there's a whole science to connecting with people, and we haven't taught people how to connect. And we're also struggling so much with presence. We're constantly distracted. As soon as we feel uncomfortable, we jump on our phones as opposed to just being still with each other and listening and connecting. And I guess the last thing I'll say is asking the right questions.
Mm.
Because we're not going to solve the loneliness epidemic by talking about sports. We're going to solve it by talking about how we're doing and our struggles and getting vulnerable with each other.
Yeah, so good. So before I kind of dive into this, I want to talk a little bit more about what that means about sort of being uncomfortable
Mm,
doing something that we're not used to doing or that we're not good at. So much about what it's about to move through transitions. That any transition of our life means we're going to become somebody we have not been before. I'm going to become a parent for the first time. Never done that before. I'm going to be someone who's been fired from a job. Never done that before. I'm going to become someone who is divorced. Never done that before. I'm going to become someone who is retired. Never done that before. And so we have to move into these places of discomfort in our lives consistently. And we all approach that in different ways. We may have fixed mindsets or preconceived notions or biases on what we can or cannot do. Um, but I want to ask a question, and I want you guys to, both of you, to be thinking about that topic. But for those of you who are in the audience here who have kids around this age, I have a question for you, which is what are your greatest concerns for your young adult? Pop it in the chat. What are your greatest concerns for your young adult? Is it something around them launching or being happy? Or what is it that helped bring you here today that you're thinking about on behalf of your young adult? I'd love to hear thoughts in the chat, or you can raise your hand and let me know either way. I'm super curious to see if anybody has anything that you might want to share. And those of you who are in the audience who are in this demographic, what are some of your greatest concerns that brought you here today? What are the things that you're thinking about that made this workshop sound interesting to you? So I'm gonna let you think about that. 100% participation. Everybody put in your thoughts here of what you're thinking about. And while that's coming through, let's kind of come back to this idea of moving through discomfort. So both of you are athletes. So obviously you've learned how to deal with discomfort physically in order to get to where you were at that level competitively. Do you think that helped you backtrack into mindsets when other things became really challenging?
100%. I think when Brian and I were talking the other day, I was reflecting on, I think one of the greatest gifts sports gave me is you have to learn to fail. You have to learn to lose, and it's normal to lose, like it's impossible to win all the time. And so you build this resilience of not being completely obliterated by a loss or by discomfort or by things not going your way. And I think that is an absolutely transferable gift that sports gave me into other areas of my life. Because I think in order to grow, you have to be uncomfortable. It is one and the same, because the more that there's an edge and you reach it and then you can move through it, then the edge just goes somewhere else, right? So there's this constant sort of expansion, but you're always, if you want to grow, kind of going to reach a place of discomfort in some area. And the more that you can understand, this is normal. Like we talk about this in transitions, Carrie, right? Like it is normal to feel scared and uncomfortable and in the messy middle and all of these things. And I can get through it. And here's all these ways or all these times I've gotten through hard times before. And so to me, it builds an inner resilience that is so critical.
Yeah, I was gonna use the word confidence, but inner resilience is spot on as well. I think confidence to me comes from facing discomfort and transcending it. Whether it's been, yes, I'm an athlete and I do marathons and Ironman. I reflect on that in every other part of my life. If I can do a marathon, I can do this. It gives me the confidence to go about other parts of my life because I've faced serious discomfort. I've, pushed through the wall at mile 20. Now I look for discomfort in other dimensions, spiritually, mentally. I've done, 10-day silent meditation retreats. I've really focused, and that for me was really uncomfortable because I'm such a doer. So to do nothing is like a hardcore growth edge for me. But I've learned that it's on the other side of discomfort that I feel the most alive. It is through discomfort that we grow. When we're not growing, we're not living. We're meant to grow. We're just like plants. Plants are always growing. Humans are supposed to be the same, but somehow we convince ourselves that I'm scared of failing, so I'm not going to continue to put myself in these crazy situations. But that is how we continue to feel alive, to continue to live by pushing on the edges of our comfort zone. And I also believe a fear of mild discomfort is probably one of the biggest things that gets in the way of success. It's not massive discomfort. Like, oftentimes we can wrap our head around, like, oh, I'm going to do this really hard thing once. It's the mild discomfort that gets in the way. I'm not going to reach out to the person because I'm scared they just don't want to reach out. They don't want to hang out with me. Or I'm not going to, submit my application to this job because what if I get rejected? That's mild discomfort. It's going to be uncomfortable for like 15 or 20 seconds, then life moves on. If we can push through that mild discomfort, that is how we really get to our dream life. And to me, I don't want a fear of mild discomfort to be the thing that stops me from living an authentic life.
Mm. I really wanted to highlight, Liz, thank you for your comment in here that you said, I'm concerned I won't have another experience where I feel close to self-actualization. That life is about change and fluctuations, and sometimes you feel on top and other times not so much. It's a profound insight that, I've had this experience that was so great. And now what? Like, am I going to flatline on this, continuous rabbit trail moving forward? How do you look at that? How do you bring a hit of happiness into that sense of I've reached a certain peak and I'm not sure now how to manage the valleys, or how do I know when I'm on the way down and when I'm on the way back up again to another peak?
Totally. I can touch on that. Life is not linear, as Caitlin and I have already talked about. And sometimes the things that we think are the worst things in our lives are the greatest gifts. So, just from a mindset perspective, I would say I try to look at life as if everything is happening for me, not to me, even if it doesn't make sense in the moment. Try to find meaning in whatever the struggle is. But then as it relates to like, oh, I'm lost. Where's my path? I think it's just about continuing to put one foot in front of the other. And I like to say that the path unfolds as we walk on it. Like if I look at my journey with Hit of Happiness, when I did sign up for the program to become a certified happiness trainer and coach, I never thought I'd be here 8 years later, leading a workshop at MEA. It was kind of just, I'm following my curiosity. I'm following what energizes me. And then all of a sudden I was leading workshops. Then all of a sudden I was posting blog posts and getting feedback. Like the path unfolds as you walk on it, and you don't need to know what the entire path looks like. I think a lot of people are scared to take that first step until they can see the entire picture of how it's all going to play out. I'm a big believer that you just need to know the next step. And
Mm.
once you know that next step, it could be sign up for an art class. It could be reach out to this one person. Then the next step will appear. The next print will appear. So
Mm.
I'll stop.
This is like a perfect little piece of advice for you, Joshua. I love what you put in here. Because life is really hard right now. And, Joshua, you said, I don't know where to go next to pursue purpose and joy in life, that you were pushed out of biomedical research and academia after a postdoc, oh, due to politics affecting the NIH. So heartbreaking. I don't see academia recovering quickly. The industry will provide me more than adequate income with a dearth of purpose. Ooh. So Brian, you found hit of happiness, and Joshua, if you want to add any more to that, just raise your hand. But how would you two suggest, you know, facing the realities of some of these very difficult times that we are in and these cement walls that show up? And, it may take time to, not only recalibrate keeping the bank account filled, but recalibrate a sense of purpose or mission or vision that was just taken away.
Yeah, I can touch on that. I mean, I think there is the reality, and you touched on that, Carrie, of like money. If you lose a job, you need to make money, and that's the society we live in. So step one is figure out how to keep the lights on, and that can be through a passion. That could be a job that doesn't really excite you, but some way to keep the lights on, and then two really ask yourself the questions like, okay, as Caitlin said earlier, I have a blank canvas. I can go anywhere and do anything. What is it that I really feel called to do? Or what is it that excites me? What is it that, a question I like to ask is if I gave you $10 million today, um, and you didn't have to, you still had to work, what would you do? It's not about the money, but if I gave you $10 million, what would you do with your life? How would you spend your time? And I think a lot of people have a good sense of what they would do. They might go teach, they might go become a travel blogger. And I say to that, I'm not going to give you $10 million, but you can still do that. You can still totally go start teaching. You can go do all those things. And I'm also a believer that there's a way to make a lot of money doing just about any job with the right strategies around that. So I know it's a hard situation when your entire paradigm of life has been blown up, but there is a path forward. And step one is getting clear on a couple ideas of what that could look like. Step two is, believing in yourself. And to whoever asked the question, just know, like, I believe in you. You can succeed at whatever that crazy idea is, just as Caitlin and I have succeeded in our nonlinear paths.
Mm. I love that. Lisa, I think you're representing my generation with your comment, which was so thank you for that. You said my son is not on a track. He's pursuing this idea of what to do after college, which I admire, but it's uncharted territory. I want to support him and offer others like this Zoom who might be supporters. I love that. As parents, we're also watching this next generation not have the same opportunities or the same life that we had when we were in our 20s, where it was easier to get a job that could actually pay your rent in an apartment, be able to pay your student loans, kind of have an upward mobility track, have a sense that a college degree actually was going to make a difference in how much money you made. And that's changed dramatically. Right now, 50% of kids under 30 are living at home. And the average first time home buyer is now 38 years old. Used to be 24 and when I was kind of coming up in the world. So you're not alone, Lisa, in watching this happen. And that's also why we're so excited to kind of bridge together those of us who have this next generation who are coming up in a very different circle and wanting to give them resources. So this is a great one for you, Caitlin, to talk a little bit about what do you see as unique about MEA in building community, giving people a chance to connect with each other, make new friends, stay connected later across all different ages.
Yeah, great question. I actually like to say I think the MEA secret sauce is the community we build. Like there's content and there's teachers and there's experiences, but at the end of those weeks, it's how each other made each other feel. And, I see it all the time. And I think what's so special about the container, for lack of a better word, that we create at MEA is we like to say we create a brave space. So we try to create a space where people feel brave enough to show up as they are, truly as they are in that third vault that we reference, and be able to put down a lot of that external pressure or roles that people play. They're like not caregiving right now, they're not parenting right now, they're not spousing right now. Like they get to kind of put these roles down and these external pressures and express how they feel. And I think so rarely do we really get to be in connection with people where we get to be fully vulnerable and express how we're really feeling, because it is scary. And I think what's so powerful when people do that is it gives others the permission to do the same. And
Hmm.
we also learn that we're not alone. If I'm feeling sad about X, Y, and Z, almost always someone in that circle connects to my sadness in some way. And so it's really, I find liberating when it's like, oh my gosh, one, I'm not alone. And two, I have now a connection with someone that I don't even know that well, that I'm seeing from a place of like their humanity and their real like heart. And that is the type of connection I think we all really desire. And so when people are with us, it's like you're able to kind of know what it feels like, to connect with people from that place. And then, as we talked about earlier with connection, it's sort of like, oh, okay, this is kind of how I have to show up, or not have to, how I could choose to show up.
Hmm.
And then it's like, what are you going to do with that? There's this opportunity to carry that forward, that I think is really, really special to kind of how community sort of builds after.
Yeah, I can certainly share the story that I sent, as I said at the beginning of this time together, my son Jeremy, who's 30 down to MEA. And it was really wonderful to watch him as the youngest in the group absolutely feel completely at home. And this group that you guys are putting together is for folks in 20s, 30s, and 40s, which is amazing. He was the youngest by probably 20 years. But nonetheless, it was so rejuvenating to have intergenerational conversations, to have the universality of the human experience reflected in different ages and stages of life. And he now is learning to surf with one of the compadres up here in Northern California, and they still get together on Zoom. And he has these sort of coaches and mentors. It's one of the beautiful things that we learned as a modern wisdom school, that it's not about us. It's not about the content that we teach. It's about creating this movement of bringing people back together. And so we invested in an entire department for alumni. So after folks come to MEA, they get to join, their group gets to be together and connect. They get to join a local chapter to go to events that are in person. And that in and of itself has created this momentum that is addressing the loneliness crisis. People are connecting to go for hikes and they're meeting for tea. And there's this sense that anybody who went to MEA is cool. I don't know why that is, but we all believe that. Like, anyone who went to MEA is cool, worth talking to. Like, that fear factor that often can be the case just goes away. And there's not very many places in the world that are like that. So I think it's one of the things I'm the most proud of. And to launch these initiatives to bring in young adults is critical. And sometimes it may need to come from y'all as parents. And some of you are recognizing this, that this is something you need right now in your life. And to use that as a springboard to making some significant changes and impacts. So as we get close to our time here, I'd love to hear from you, Brian and Caitlin. What are some of those takeaways that your goal is to create for folks who are going to come spend a long weekend with you in January?
Yeah, so, at the end of this, my goal is that everyone in attendance has clarity on what their dream life looks like, feels confident that they can go after it, and that confidence comes from, some of the activities we're going to do that might be a little uncomfortable at the session. It also comes from reminiscing on all that they've accomplished to get to where they are today. And then have creative ideas of how to make that a reality. I think that, we're going to have people brainstorm and support each other in figuring out, like, how do we make this dream life, this life of meaning, a real one? Who do you know that I can connect you with? And, combine that all with, happiness, learning some of the science of happiness so that you're both thriving and clear in what you want and actually going after it. I think I know actually that that's the formula for a meaningful life. So my goal is that everyone feels equipped with that formula and is executing on it. And as you mentioned, Carrie, it doesn't end at MEA. It continues with accountability. We'll meet with you guys on a monthly basis to keep it going. Maybe we'll even have, get-togethers around the world after that. So, but we're a team to help everyone build their dream life.
Mm. Caitlin.
I mean, he pretty much covered it. But a lot of what we really want is to help people understand like how, because I think that's such a big question is, yeah, that sounds nice, but how? And so through the workshop, like giving people tools and doing exercises and different practices that help us understand how to do all of those steps that Brian just referenced and to get to that place of getting creative, being being your artist of your own life, and actually following through on moving towards the direction of the life that actually matters most to you.
Yeah, I love it. So anybody have any final questions? Pop them in the chat or raise your hand for Brian or Caitlin or myself. Happy to answer those questions. One of the fun things about MEA is that we actually pay people to answer the phone. Isn't that amazing? Like, literally real people who literally answer the phone, and they actually have time for you. It's like an old-fashioned doctor. Like, they will sit and chat with you for as long as you need. And we also have some millennials on our advisory team who'd be happy to talk to your millennial or Gen Z who may have questions. So I encourage you to look at that, book a call and take it seriously. That's a great opportunity to chat with someone who's deeply familiar with all the questions you might have about MEA, about this particular workshop, other workshops. What's the size of the workshop? Varies. You know, the nice thing about our campus is it's meant to be cozy. It's a small ranch home style space. There's no tables, there's no desks, there's no there's no slides, none of that. And so we tend to have small groups, like 12 people, maybe 15 people. It's such a nice blend. We can go up to, as high as 20, but we often have these small groups. You have time to go hiking out on the land. You have time to go be with the horses. Meals are served together. It's a really magnificent space to think spacious thoughts. And with the time that Caitlin and Brian inspire with some of these ideas and tools, you have time to talk about them so that they don't just like stick in your head. Yes, the food is spectacular, delicious. So we're so delighted, you two, to be pioneering how to bring this idea of happiness across the board, but particularly to those in their 20s and 30s and 40s who most need it. Thank you for the work that you've put together. We're so excited that you'll be launching 2026 with this new program on the ranch. And again, as I mentioned to everybody, we'll be sending the recording of this conversation so that you can share that. It lives on our website under free wisdom. So you can always go to that free wisdom section of our website and you can find all of these various live events that we offer as one of the services of this organization, that we want to give free wisdom. We want to give you something to think about. We want to bring you interesting people that you would never had a chance to meet and just be inspired for the rest of the day. You may be thinking about these topics, and that in and of itself is a gift. So Brian, thank you for the wonderful work that you do with Hit of Happiness and for putting this course together. Caitlin, thank you for saying yes, helping to make this happen, bringing your grace. And I hope that all of you were inspired today to share this with your adult child or for you yourself or considering it. We also do offer financial aid. So if you are in a position where this might feel out of reach to you financially, we do have those opportunities available and our advisors can help with that as well. So with that, Connor, I think you've got some music to take us out of here. I'm going to take us off of the spotlight and thank you, Brian. Thank you, Caitlin, for a beautiful hour.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, evening. Thanks, everybody.